For this next problem, we are given two different insurance plans and then asked to decide which of the following would be the best one to use based on our medical spending for the past year. Now, when dealing with a problem like this, there's a little bit of like, well, I'm assuming that the next year I'm going to have similar types of medical expenses, and you may or you may not. Um, but for this particular problem, what I like to do is I'm sort of going to take it one plan at a time and sort of go through my expenses and then um, make a conclusion. So we'll start with plan A. So plan A is a low deductible plan, and often with low deductible plans, you're going to have to pay something in order to have those sort of lovely fun things. And in this case, yes, there is an annual premium, and our employer is going to pay 80% of this amount. And so there is an amount that I am going to have to pay if I choose plan A. So I would take that 5,400. So we start with just the premium. And so for that premium, and I'm sort of creating a little table for myself, I would have 5,400, and I'm going to pay 20% if my employer pays 80%. And so that means for this, I actually owe $1,080. Now I'm going to just sort of keep going with plan A. For me, that's the easiest, okay? And so the next one is the checkup, and the checkup is free. So that's zero. Woohoo. All right, next. Oops, I skipped one. Well, I did the checkup first. So next I'm going to go back up to the emergency room visit. Now, we're told with emergency room visits that there is a $75 fee in addition to the bill. So for that ER trip, we're going to have $75. That's just a fee. It doesn't count towards our deductible. But then we have this bill right here. And the first thing is we just have to pay towards our deductible. Well, we're told our deductible is only $400 for the year. So, well, 400 is less than 2,283. So we're going to pay that $400 deductible. That's our deductible. Now, here's the good news. Our deductible is paid. We no longer are paying towards our deductible. For the rest of the year on this plan, insurance is going to pay 90% of all the other expenses, which means we are only having to pay 10%. So what's going to happen then is I'm going to say, okay, for the remaining amount of that bill, so I'd do my 2,283 minus the 400. So that's like the bill that remains. I only have to pay 10% of that. And so if I put all of this into a calculator, just so you know, the remaining bill was about $1,883. I actually only have to pay $663.50 for that emergency room visit. Okay, next, we did the ER, is a doctor's visit. Now, here's the reality. You have a $20 copayment for doctor's visit. That means you don't get billed past that. It's just the $20. As someone who has a copay, I just pay, so doctor, I pay the $20 and I'm done. So this is a copay. And then the next step would be the x-ray. And now we're moving into, we're just paying that 90, that 10% of our rest of our bills. So that would be 10% of 278, which would be $27.80. And then the stitches. Now here I did a little bit of a mistake. I didn't put urgent care in the list of types of medical expenses. So we are going to call it ER. The reality with a lot of insurance plans that I've looked at, urgent care is usually slightly cheaper fee than ER because they want to encourage you to go to the urgent care over the ER. But we'll just treat it with the same as an ER, which meant $75 fee plus 10% of that 150. Oops. I messed up there writing 150. So 10% of 150. Which would end up being exactly $100. Now, if I total everything in this expenditure, so the 1,080, zero for my checkup, 663, $20 copay, 27, and 100, I end up only with paying, so out of pocket, ends up being $1,891.30 for plan A. Okay. Not too bad. Now we basically want to do the same thing for plan B. So I'm going to draw a little line and we're going to do plan B. Now plan B is a high deductible, and I built this sort of reminiscent of some of the insurance plans I had when I was younger. And so basically you have an annual premium, but your employer pays it all. And sometimes with these plans, you also have an HSA tied to it, and they would put money into an HSA, but we're not getting into that complexity right now. The deductible is $3,500 for the year. And basically on this type of plan, what happens is I get billed for everything and I have to just pay it out of pocket until I hit that deductible. Um, but once I hit that deductible, then the insurance covers 80% of all other expenses. So the premium is zero. You know, that first category would be zero. My checkup would also be zero. But when I go to that ER visit, I am paying that full amount, that $2,283, because I haven't met my deductible. My doctor's visit would be $175 because I would get that bill. My x-ray would be $278. And my next ER visit would be $150. Now, here's the reality. I'm not going to meet my deductible. I'm not going to hit $3,500. So I'm going to just have to pay all that out of pocket. So the out of pocket expenditures are $2,886. And so looking at my medical expenses for the last year, definitely Plan A was worth buying up for, but it was only really worth buying up for because I made my deductible right away. I had that ER visit. So maybe in my head, I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to visit the ER next year. So I'm going to not go for Plan A. So I go for that cheaper plan. I think I'm going to be healthier this year. And that's where insurance sort of gets you. You have to do that sort of thinking like, well, am I going to assume I'm not going to have medical expenses this year, or am I going to assume that I do? But just on the surface and just by the numbers, Plan A would be the way that you would want to go. It's a better deal for your current, oops, I did not mean to flip pages there. Better deal for your current medical expenses. All right. Hopefully, this helps makes a little more sense of some of our healthcare problems.